Welcome to Beverly Arts Talk. This is your host, Matt McKinney. Today I have an interview with Dre Robinson, who is the director of American Son. It's a Broadway play that's going to have a showtime at June 5th at 7 p.m. at the Beverly Arts Center. American Son is certainly a play that will strike a chord with any audience and bring up a discussion about the current state of race in America. It was written in 2019 and seems even timelier now in its subject of implicit racial bias in both the police system, but also in how race is viewed from the perspectives of both African Americans and white people in America, and how those perspectives can be very different as we see it through the eyes of a black mother who was once married to a white man, and a white man who also appears to be in law enforcement as an FBI agent. Dre, welcome to the show. Thanks so much for coming on the podcast.
Thank you for having me. Glad to be here.
So I just finished reading the script, and it's such a provocative and unflinching look at race in America. It's a lot to chew off. But I wanted to ask you, as the director, what are some of the lessons that we learned from American Son? And if you can also just discuss a little bit about the narrative and the plot of American Son, and let us know what we're going to see.
Sure. I think this play, American Son, it shines a light on so many problems that we are having in America, specifically with policing. But not only that, just race itself. I think the problem between the races is we don't talk to each other enough about the differences that we all have. I think if we had those conversations and that we understood the path that specifically African Americans have gone through in this country, I think we would find a way to work together to heal those things and, most importantly, fix what is wrong in the country. So this show, it, like I said before, it shines a light on those problems, not only specifically policing, because I feel like that's the broader scope of it, but the relationships. You have two people, a black woman and a white man, and how their marriage is affected by race, how they're bringing up their son, how that's affected by race, how him being, he's an FBI agent, how that affects their marriage, and just brings forth the conversation about race. So all that's in this show.
Yeah, and I would say that the as I was reading through it, the dialogue seems very, very real. You know what I mean? You feel like you're actually reading a conversation as it's happening. I mean, that's how good that the dialogue is. So I would imagine with the actors, it's going to be it's going to be so much of playing off the chemistry of the actors, because that dialogue is there for it's right for the relationship to really come out.
Yeah, that's one thing that I love about this show is the dialogue. It is very much like a conversation. Like you said, you're just sitting there. It's almost like you, as an audience member, is right there in the waiting room, this police station, and you're just hearing this stuff go on. So I really love that. One of the things, as we're rehearsing, one of the things that I really want the actors to pay attention to is the way characters talk over each other. And typically in theater, you probably wouldn't do that. But because the language is so real, we do that all the time. We talk over each other. We talk under each other. Those things are real. So I love that a lot.
Yeah. And it's a lot of, there is a lot of screaming, but that's what happens in real life. You know what I mean? And especially in a situation like this situation where,
exactly.
We have, really, the mother is there at first, and let's just kind of break down the story a little bit. Kendra's there in a police station. She knows something has happened to her son. She knows, and you feel the anxiety. It's there. It's there in the dialogue. It's there with her interactions with that first police officer, Officer Larkin. And we find right away, actually, there's the implicit racial bias that comes from him, the police officer, Larkin, just in the way that he starts asking questions about her son.
Right.
We feel that right away. And then later when the the estranged husband comes and talks to the police officer, there's a moment where the Larkin thinks that Scott is the other police officer that's supposed to be, coming to explain the situation. After that happens, you see Larkin starts to talk to Scott as if, he's just another white police officer. And you see a little bit of that, or actually you see a very racist conversation come out of Larkin in that moment. And that was very striking, and it made me wonder, is that what, it seemed like when minorities are out of the question, is this what white police officers are talking about,
Yeah, I think that, you're exactly right. I think that the conversations that we have between the races and within our own race, I think that the officer, even though he thinks he's doing his job, and I think this is the problem that we're having now, Black America, with the police, is sensitivity training. There are other ways, and Kendra says some of those things in the show. There's other ways that he could have treated that situation. Here is a mother who is just confused about the whereabouts of her son. And she's just asking for just a little help. Like, hey, I don't know what's going on and I'm a nervous wreck. Can you help me? Everything doesn't have to be by the book.
Right.
You can be a little bit sensitive to my needs.
Right. She says at one point she's being managed. She knows when she's being managed. She's
exactly.
PhD in psychology,
Exactly.
And he's sitting there just like, I'm just Mr. By the book. I'm just going by protocol.
Yeah.
And
sure.
And he really disrespects her. And when you see the Scott come in, he's wearing the badge. He looks like a police officer, and immediately the tone changes, completely. And he's just like, oh, it's another white police officer. Let's have a conversation about how Kendra was overreacting and being, he refers to her as being ghetto. And
right, from to ghetto, yeah.
Yep. And it really that was a moment where you see like the subtlety of the racial bias, and then it's just like overt,
Yeah, and it's also in that moment the relationship that law enforcement has with each other.
Yeah.
There's a whole separate thing about their little clique, the thin blue line or whatever,
Yeah.
And so when he sees the badge, he automatically just, like they're buddies, you know?
Yeah.
So there's a whole deeper context of that as well.
Yeah, he idolizes Scott the minute he sees that badge. When he finds out he's FBI, he's like, "Oh my, I want to be you,"
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely. So let's talk a little bit about the relationship between Kendra and Scott. So the play revolves around their relationships and very much how their perspectives on race and race relations, and within their own relationships, how they have viewed their son's upbringing. Can you speak a little to the differences in which they see the world involving race and their son Jamal? There are moments like when we find out that Jamal has started to explore more of his Black heritage and Black culture. He's kind of grown up in a white world around, just simply a culture that was not around a lot of Black culture, and so he's starting to explore this, and he's kind of rejecting his father's Irish heritage. I know it has to do a little bit with the fact that the father left, right? The father left. But can you speak a little bit as to what happens with Jamal?
Well, I think, Jamal is just going through what every Black man or Black person in America goes through. There are times, there's a certain age that you hit that you realize you're Black in America, and that this is not going to be an easy road. And so, he has grown up not really knowing, he hasn't felt that sting yet. But I think that when he gets into high school, he realizes, oh, I'm like one of two Black people in this school. So that's weighing on his mind. And, his dad wants him to go to West Point, but he wants to do something a little bit more creative, or he wants to do sports or things like that. He's becoming a man, and he's also becoming a Black man. And he realizes that doesn't jive so much with his father's vision. His father wouldn't know what it's like to be Black. You know, he doesn't carry that burden. So, you know, they clash at this point. And it's a young man who's coming of age, and he knows the burden. I think his mom has put that in him, but just being, you know, Black in America, he's feeling more of that as he grows older.
Right. So Scott kind of, as we go through the story, he kind of rejects like the whole critical race theory idea in and of itself. You kind of see that, but by the end of the story, or you can see he's changing a little bit his views. Can we talk a little bit about that growth in Scott's character?
Yeah, I think it's not subtle. The things that happen to him. The cool thing about this play is I feel like it takes Scott on a journey that many Black people go through when they're in those situations. And one thing about Scott is I feel like his privilege is always there. It's like a shield. And even when he comes in the door, his privilege comes in first. And then he adds the FBI thing to it, and you know, it's privilege upon privilege. So he doesn't understand those things. And when the things that happen to Black Americans starts to hit him, it's a smack in the face. And I don't think he's ready for it. He doesn't understand. And even Kendra, throughout the whole play, she's trying to tell him, hey, this is the way it is. And I feel like she's doing that the whole play. No one's really listening to her.
Yeah.
And she's trying to tell them, hey, this is how it is. And he just keeps rejecting it until he becomes what goes on in our lives. He is subjected to some of those things as well. And I don't think he's ready for it. Yeah. So it's a major slap in the face for him.
Yeah, it's just a wake up call. It just it just hits him like a ton of bricks. You know?
Exactly.
I wouldn't even know. I don't even know if it's like growth. It's just like literally something just changes.
Yeah,
and
right.
It's just like, oh, this is the reality, and yeah, he sees it quite clearly.
And you know what? Sometimes that needs to happen, man. And I mean, with all of us, life is not a movie. Yeah. Sometimes it's nice and dandy and rainbows and unicorns, but most time life. It smacks you in the face, man.
Yep, absolutely. That's how it goes.
Yep.
So let's talk a little bit about Lieutenant. I think he's a lieutenant. Lieutenant Stokes.
Yeah.
Who is he's an African American, and he's in charge of the case, right? That they're looking at. And he has a conversation with Kendra, and that conversation is very much it's almost like he sees the reality of what it's like to be a Black man in America as well. And he's like, listen, Jamal or any other Black kid just needs to be quiet and silent when a police officer pulls him over. He literally says that. And Kendra can't believe she's hearing that from a police officer.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. Can you speak to that conversation? What do you think that conversation meant?
Yeah, it's funny. In rehearsal, we just worked on this scene last night. And I think with him he's saying the quiet part out loud. You know, he's trying to, throughout that whole scene, he's trying to, one, calm her down, reason with her. And when none of that works, he pulls the race card on her and tries to come at her like, two Black people. And he's trying to say, hey, sister, this is kind of the way it is. If he just does this, I know it's not right. You know, I understand that Black people should be able to just walk around and be normal, but that's not the way the world sees us all the time. So you need to be more careful. And she just can't believe that. Yeah. You know, she's like, really? You're telling me this? So it's those conversations that I think as Black people, we have to ourselves like all the time, man. But hearing it from another Black person, specifically a police officer, I think it's jarring to her, and she can't believe what she's hearing. But from his point of view, I feel like I said before, he's saying that quiet part out. Like, hey, I know this is not right. I know it's messed up. But if they would just do this, we'd be in a better place. This would not happen. He sees these cases all the time. This isn't his first rodeo. So he is trying to tell her, look, if you just do what they say, we wouldn't have these problems.
Yeah. Well, and how tough do you think it is to be an African American who's a police officer today? I mean,
oh man, I can't imagine what that's like. You know, like I said before, you not only have the race issue, but policemen in general have like their own little secret code, their own little private society. So to be in that, I can't say that that's an easy task, because I'm sure there's rampant racism in the police force. And to be where he is, to get to where he is in his job, I'm sure he had to go through a lot of stuff. So this is a man who, he knows what he's talking about. He's lived this stuff, you know, and that just can't be easy. It's not an easy position. And you have to, I'm sure he goes home every day and wrestles with, because he deals with these mothers all the time. He knows that, you know, maybe I could be more sensitive to them, or, you know, whatever. But when he goes home at night, I'm sure he probably has to like take a shower and just like wash it all off. Because he's like, I know I did some stuff that just, I wouldn't do in a normal job, you know? I would be more sensitive or whatever. So it cannot be easy being in that situation.
Yeah. So a question, I mean, obviously the whole play of American Son is bringing up the uncomfortable discussions over race and implicit racial bias and in relationships, in the police system. So one of the things I'd like to kind of cover then is what do you see, what can come out of American Son that could enact change in some way? What you know, what's something that can come out of the story that we can tangibly take and say, you know, maybe it's just having the conversation itself. Maybe that's just all we can do.
Yeah.
But out of that conversation, what tangibly do you think the police system can do to correct itself right now? Just like even here in Chicago.
Sure. I mean, I think that it is having these hard conversations. You know, when it comes to race, we can talk about almost anything in the world. But
yeah.
Man, when you put that race thing up, it's always like, oh, here we go again.
Yeah, well, and I think especially for white people get very uncomfortable with race. You know, I mean, it's the white fragility, you know, thing. It's like the minute it's up, it's just like you can feel the room. It's just like tense.
Oh, the tension, they cut it with a knife.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that this show, it shines a light on the problems we have as racists, you know, that, hey, if you just hear what I'm saying, you know, the whole thing about what's going on with policemen and killing these black men. I mean, hey, black people have been screaming these things forever, probably since we got here, that this is not right. Mm-hmm. But when the power system, they don't want to change things. I mean, they really have no need to change things. You know, it's good for them, you know, but we are dying. Things are not equal for us. And I think in the year 2021, I think black folks are really, really tired. And so, you know, people talk about, you know, George Floyd and the fact that it was videotaped and things like that. We've been videotaping these things for years, you know, Rodney King. But nothing has changed. It's because we don't want to have the hard conversations. And you know what? It's okay to have the hard conversations. Like I said, life is not easy. You should have these conversations.
Right.
And I think,
go ahead. Sorry.
No, and I just think that that's part of the problem, that we don't want to talk about these things, but we need to. Conversation can help, can heal a lot of things.
Absolutely. And play about it and the arts, all of this stuff. It all brings these conversations, which, you know, I mean, unless you're on social media, it doesn't seem like people are probably having a lot of these conversations with each other.
Sure.
You know,
and I mean, that's what art is supposed to do. You know, art is not supposed to be comfortable at all. You know, it is supposed to smack you in the face. It's supposed to tell you, hey, this is messed up. Listen. You know, and I think that's what makes this play so good that it is telling you, it is showing you this is the problem. We need to have these conversations.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about the play now. How you guys are doing at the Beverly Arts Center? What are we? You guys have like literally 2.5 weeks until the show. So how are rehearsals going? Is everybody cool? Like with like the timeline? I mean, I imagine like there's a lot of dialogue here. So learning and memorizing those lines, like you got to be like very like just on your game.
Yeah, it's funny when I talked to Carly about the job and I accepted the position. I feel like right after I accepted the position, I looked at the calendar and went, "Oh my God, this is basically tomorrow." So I felt like what I had to do was choose people that I kind of knew that I've worked with before, because we have to get this done fast paced and. I wanted to have people that I've worked with before or people who knew how I work. So I reached out to a bunch of friends of mine for actors, and like as soon as I asked them, actors were flooding in. And so with my cast, most of them have worked together in some way, form, or fashion, which is good because, they know, hey, if I go left, you're going to go with me. If I go straight, you're going to go with me. So that's good. The cast is full of veterans. They've worked in theater for a long time, so they know what's going on. So I really wanted to just surround myself with a lot of good people. The other thing is just, dealing with the pandemic, dealing with the stuff that we're all going through, and then bringing theater back, So we are rehearsing in person, but we're also rehearsing on Zoom. And when I first did the, Zoom rehearsals, by now everyone's tired of Zoom. But I do think it's a good way to have like more specific conversations in rehearsal, that I can talk like I'm talking to you. I can talk to my cast like this. Everyone's in the comfort of their own homes. So we can have these more intimate conversations. And then when we meet in person, we can do more specific stuff, blocking and more physical interactions and stuff like that. So Zoom helps because some people don't have the time to either come to the theater or whatever, right. But they can pop on Zoom for an hour or a half hour or whatever, and we can have a rehearsal and get a lot of work done. So right. I'm loving that portion, and I feel like that's going to help us get this thing up and running.
Yeah, I mean, the play takes place pretty much in a police station. So I mentioned the blocking is probably not super difficult. But although, there's a lot of subtleties that I'm sure you have to pay attention to, you know. There are moments where the emotion rises up, obviously, where the characters stand up and there's confrontation. So there's a lot of that in the play.
And one thing that helps with the short timeline, I do feel like this is almost like a film. It just goes straight. Once it starts, it's almost like in real time, man. There's no breaks.
Yeah.
It just goes, man. And I love that. And the dialogue is really fast paced. And so it just kind of works with the short time period that we have. It's just, hey, we're just running through this. It's like once this train gets rolling, it's not going to stop.
Yeah, there's not even really a chance to breathe, I think. Like when I was like reading the script, I literally couldn't put it down. I mean, you just read right through it. You know what
exactly.
I mean? Like you pick it up and it's just like dialogue after dialogue. You're like, there's no like stopping place here. And so,
exactly. It's like watching a show on Netflix, it's just boom, you're in it. You can binge watch this play, basically.
Yeah, absolutely. They could have kept this going. I mean, we I don't want to give away the ending, but the ending's. I won't give away the ending. I say every podcast I get on, I'm always like, by the end I'm like, no, because I always want to talk about it because it's, it's actually the ending is a huge part of the play,
Yeah, of course.
But I won't do that. So if we can get people in the seats because that's what we got to do.
Exactly.
So do you think American Son? I already can tell that I think it's already going to be kind of considered a Broadway classic in its own right. I think it's. I mean, it was made into a film like right away. But I think it will continue to be an important play.
I think so. Yeah, I'm so glad. When it first came to Broadway, I didn't get a chance to see it, but definitely interested in it. And when Carly told me this was the show, I was super excited because I do feel like, this is a show, it could take place, next year, the year after that. These are things, it's so now, you know, it just shines a light on everything that is going on in America. And, I don't see that changing anytime soon. So this play could be around forever.
Yeah, absolutely. And would say we do see that change. It will be the kind of play that you go back and it is of this time. It feels very much of this time as well.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
So, and that it was created in 2019, obviously after many other shootings and cases of police brutality. But then 2020 was, we have George Floyd and the protest all around. So it almost seemed of a predictor of these issues and that we would be talking about them.
It's funny how art does that.
Yes, it is. Indeed. All right, Dre. Well, is there anything else you want to share with us about American Son?
No, just come on out, see it. It's gonna smack you in the face, but it's gonna feel real good. And the fact that, hey, you're enjoying a play outside, it's gonna be beautiful. We're back, and I think that celebrate that as well. So you're gonna see a really good production outside. It's gonna be great.
All right. I can't wait to see it. I will be there. Hope to see everybody else June 5th at 7, and it's in our courtyard, right? So
yep, that's correct.
Gonna be a great time. I think it's rain or shine, right? Like it's
well, if it starts raining, we're gonna move inside. So
okay.
We're crossing our fingers for no rain.
Cross our fingers. All right. Well, thanks so much, Dre, for coming on Beverly Arts Talk. Looking forward to the play. So.
Thank you so much.
This has been another episode of Beverly Arts Talk. This has been your host, Matt McKinney. Please feel free to donate on our website at www.beverlyartscenter.org. As always, please be safe and be well.
Once in this product